so huge. It's like countries being transported across India every day. The Indian Railways, give or take a little, is perhaps the largest railway network in the world. And it has trains running which do journeys up to a 3 to 3.5 day continuous journey. And in that period, any number of people hop on and hop off the trains. So therefore, security is a matter of concern. There have been bomb attacks in train in Mumbai. Terrorists have used that to convey a message before 26/11 happened. There are local transport systems. Bombay, like London, has a large population which comes into Bombay every day and goes back from Bombay every day. So the population virtually, I think, goes up by 30% or more every day because the working population that comes into Mumbai city as such. And that mass transport system is so crowded that only your luck and God can save you. As yet, I haven't found any security system that really can cope with it. Then you have maritime security issues, coastal security. Mumbai, which faced a maritime attack, interestingly, as far as I understand, the security in Mumbai has been handed over to the police, to the Indian Navy. So opportunities there in terms of being able to sell equipment are going to be limited. But there are other coastal cities in India, such as Chennai, Calcutta, and Kerala and Cochin and elsewhere, where there is a concern that the next attack might happen, if not in Mumbai, elsewhere. So there is business to be done in the area of coastal security. Force modernization, growth areas, yes. Weapons and equipment, the governments and the state governments are keen to purchase, from basic handheld weapons to air mobility and ground mobility, electronic surveillance, CBRNE protection. These areas are of great interest and are being looked at very seriously. And another area which is booming now in India, but still there isn't enough professionalism, is private security. Because the government is stretched. And a lesson that came to us in 26/11 to more citizens in India, but to some of us who observe terrorism and attacks on cities elsewhere in the world, post 9/11, one of the lessons that we learned is that the state, the nation state, is unable to protect every citizen. And in India, unfortunately, the level of consciousness amongst individuals and citizens for security related issues is much, much lower than, say, it's in a city like London. And therefore people feel that if you put your private bodyguards or your private security chaps on your gate and your doorway, half of them unshaven, looking sleepy and really hardly up to speed, they think they've done the job. But Indian Eye Security, for instance, has is going into this business, and we are just training about 100 people, which we picked up from everywhere in the world. We have our own training academy and facilities in Belgaum, which is a town which was traditionally infamous for running the Indian Army's commando courses. But just close to Belgaum is a place called Belgundi. We have a training academy and a full infrastructure in place. And we are looking for companies that can provide certification to some of our training programs. We have a training team which is led by very capable people. Colonel Shukla is there, who used to be involved with the training of most of the Indian Army's troops being inducted into the Valley, Kashmir Valley. So he has over a period of time trained 50 to 70,000 troops. Okay, now case study, Delhi versus Mumbai. Two big cities, comparison, how do they fare out? Delhi looks more like India's Washington DC, more spread out. Mumbai is like New York, Long Island. And therefore narrow roads, few escape routes in the event of a major catastrophe. Delhi is the capital city, landlocked, has top political leadership, headquarters of India's military and paramilitary forces, has diplomatic missions, many historical monuments, hosts large events like the Commonwealth Games, has large international airport, perhaps I think it's the 4th largest in the world now, home to major retail centers, many major rail and bus terminals, and home to top media houses. And media loves bad news. So if you have something in Delhi, the terrorists are sure to attract the attention that they want for their cause. So Delhi will always remain a big target for terrorist groups. Mumbai, financial capital of India, has large international airport, coastal city, major ports and a shipyard. That photograph is of Mumbai's Marine Drive, the Queen's Necklace as it's called, home to Mumbai's Stock Exchange, headquarters to Tata's, Reliance, and other business houses in India and banks, large industrial base, has lots of multinational companies reliant on public transport, especially trains, taxis, metros, and therefore which have been targeted in the past. And Delhi, massive movement of labor in and out of Mumbai. Labor means also white collar people who come into work. Delhi, therefore, the security status in Delhi is dual control, largely with the Ministry of Home, but there is a state government. But we had, interestingly, the political advisor to the Chief Minister say in our conference in Washington, D.C. last week that he is not in control of anything. So I now assume that Delhi is totally in God's hands. And the budget for Delhi is $742 million for police upgradation and security. Population is 14 million, increases by a bit more during the day when people like me who live in the suburbs of Delhi come into work. Police to population ratio is 1:272, and terrorist attacks have been numerous. National Security Guards, India's Black Cat Commandos, the ones who were used eventually after much deliberation and delay in Mumbai, are based outside Delhi, and army units are all over the place in Delhi. So it's the most secure city in India, but still not secure enough. Delhi security forces includes Indian army units, and hotels have considerably beefed up their security after 26/11. But Delhi therefore needs a centralized communication network to get all the security agencies on the same page. CCTVs in large public places and high-value targets, including business houses, are CCTVs are much in demand. Police need better mobility, higher level of counter-terror training and capability, and Delhi Police, I believe, has expressed some interest to Indian security to try and give them some technology to move them into the next generation of capability. More drills, contingency planning for nuclear, biological, chemical attacks. None of us really know what the contingency plans are. We're just told you'll be taken care of when it happens, so we just keep praying. Better public protection required. Currently, too much emphasis on guards protecting VVIPs and VIPs. I mean, very often you run into traffic jams here. The traffic, I believe, only stops for Her Majesty the Queen. In India, it stops for every white car with a red light. Mumbai, security status under state government, and therefore the resources and police efficacy is limited. Budget 24 million, population 20.4 million, population to police strength 1:359 since 1993. There have been many terrorist attacks, Mumbai attacks, NSG, National Security Guards have flown in from Delhi. Since then, they have created something in Mumbai which is their alternative to the NSG called Force One, but the media still calls them Fast One. Now Mumbai has its own commando force, Force One. Mumbai's requirements: technology, helicopter surveillance, high-tech gadgets for land and security surveillance and coastal surveillance, UHF communication systems, extremely important with high-rise buildings all over the place. Police need better training and weapons to respond to future terror attacks. Ability of police forces to respond to attacks, however, is varied and inconsistent despite all the boast by politicians. Little public consciousness about matters related to terrorism despite 26/11 attacks. Coastal surveillance is still doubtful since the responsibility is given to the Navy, which gets little support from the local police. So there is conflict of interest. So you've got the Navy there, but the local police is not helping out because their territory has been taken away from them. And I think in the end game, if there's another attack, Mumbai perhaps won't fare very much better than what it did last time, unfortunately. Linear city with narrow roads and lane networks, therefore no contingency planning to prevent panic. Other metropolitan cities in India which should be also looked at with interest given in the maps, these are big cities also. Bangalore, India's IT capital, and very much India's Silicon Valley, and Hyderabad becoming very close, number 2 to Bangalore. Both have had terror attacks because these again attract attention for terrorists. At the same time, Kolkata and Chennai are coastal cities, not really at the receiving end, but I have found in all our efforts to create awareness there as part of our secure city initiatives, and Indian Eye and Security Watch India has had 2 conferences in these cities last year in May and November, December, 7 cities in one go and 9 cities in one row, 1 conference a day. And we found that local government was quite conscious, quite interested, enthusiastic about providing security to its people. Case study number 2, we have Jharkhand, which is a state has Maoist threats, and therefore insurgent groups are there. These are very heavily, densely forested states with large tribal population which have missed out on India's shining story, and therefore what you see as India's growth story in the big cities, that hasn't got to them. They don't have television sets, they hardly have radio, poor schools, or if any, roads very badly maintained, if any metal roads at all. Water, electricity is still a big dream. So obviously this is a heady cocktail for getting any insurgency going. What are the requirements? Counterinsurgency, jungle warfare training and equipment, IED detection equipment and disposal equipment is hugely in demand in all these states. Surveillance technology which can allow you to do IED, if possible IED surveillance, but certainly surveillance through thick foliage because heavy jungles are there, and large scale low cost transport and communication security. The state of Jharkhand has a police budget of $279 million to spend, and central support will be provided another $25 million. So you're looking at $3 and $5 million, 3 and 4. Chhattisgarh, again Maoist insurgency, same kind of laundry list for equipment required, counterinsurgency, jungle warfare training, mini UAVs with capabilities to see through dense jungle and foliage, IED detection and disposal equipment, IED resistant vehicles, and Sanjeev's been talking to a company which is claiming to produce that. But our experience of Indian Army operating in Sri Lanka was that even 60-ton tanks were thrown up into the air by IEDs. So I just wonder what kind of resistance this vehicle will have. Electronic communication, monitoring and interception technology, but all that is very much required in the state of Chhattisgarh. The police budget is 135 million and a central support of another 18.24. So you're looking at about 154 million as the budget to spend in the coming year. This is all given out in the red booklet. Bihar, again, Maoist insurgency, crime nexus, so therefore there is another problem there. Cross-border movement from Nepal, linkage with the Maoist groups in Nepal. Border security and surveillance is much more in demand here than in the other insurgency-infested states. Urban combat training and equipment, weapons, personal protection gear, electronic communications, etc. Bihar's budget is rather large. It's 471 million is the state police budget, and the central government is offered another 13.4. So you're looking at 484, about 484 million is about the money that they're hoping to spend. Threats in Bengal, again, that's a state that we have begun dialogue with. Indian Eye Security is hoping to get major contracts there. There is a Maoist insurgency, but there is also threat from cross-border movement from Bangladesh, where there is a very dense population and therefore they come over opportunities to the state of Bengal. Seaports also, there is coastal security threat, and there is a threat to Kolkata itself as a huge city. The first major city was part of the British Empire, eventually the capital shifted to Delhi. Coastal port security, SWAT gear, riot control equipment, and a whole lot of upgrades, including IED stuff, is required here. The state of West Bengal has allocated $716 million for this year's purchases for police upgrades, and central finance support is another 7 million. So you're looking at about 724 million thereabouts. And finally, the state of Orissa. And Orissa, the Maoist insurgency, again there, but also has a coastal issue, threat to seaports, lots of energy companies there, particularly power sector. So infrastructure protection is another big thing that could catch your attraction. And usual upgradation of police forces. Orissa has set up a police training academy for doing specialized infantry level and beyond training. We visited that, and quite impressive infrastructure already in place. So they are moving steadily in the direction, but would require helicopters for troop lift capability, counterinsurgency, jungle warfare equipment, and the usual IED related equipment and low cost transport for movement and communication security as well. The budget for Orissa is 276 million and another 14 million from central finance. You're looking at $300 million for the coming year, which they spend. So collectively, I mean, there is talk about India eventually being a market of about 18 billion plus minus, but this would be probably over a period of 5 to 7 years. Annually there is budget, but also the point to note is a question that often comes up, that is that all the money that India is going to spend on homeland security? On the face of it, yes, but if there is something more to be bought, the state governments have leverage and powers to go out and make a much bigger purchase if they can make a decent case out to New Delhi to support that initiative. So what are the opportunities in the homeland security market in India? Therefore, Indian companies should be used to build alliances with. That's a route we would suggest you consider taking instead of trying to go your own way, because a lot of Indian companies have their own connections, network within the government, and you could exploit that. Growing economy, greater purchasing capability, and it's going to go up every year. The economy is still, despite everything else, growing at 8 or 9% every year. Increased threat perception. Recent opening of procurement process means a vacuum of suppliers, and the first movers will always have an advantage. However, there is a multiplicity of customers that you have to deal with, and it's good and it's bad. It can be very confusing. There are 10 roughly central agencies, and there are 28 states and numerous private industry customers. So it's a huge market. Innovation is valued. Just a few suggestions when you go out to do business in India. Understand the layout of what kind of business you are going to do in India, which city would need that. What Delhi requires, Mumbai doesn't. What Mumbai requires, Hyderabad doesn't. So you have to keep looking at each case separately. So have somebody to guide you through the maze that is India. Invest in R&D in India, research and development, which will give you two advantages. One, will give you a base in India to actually show to Indian companies and Indian government that you are seriously there for the long haul. And the second advantage is you could use your R&D research in India to reach out to other countries in Africa or Southeast Asia because labor is capable and cheap, and therefore your overhead costs will decrease dramatically. You have to be very, very patient in India. If you're dealing with the Ministry of Defense, I think you should prepare to go grey before your deal goes. But with the Ministry of Home, it will probably happen much, much faster. Export, use India as an export base, create business opportunities for yourself in addition to supplying products to prospective customers and companies. You could also create other opportunities for yourself by seeking alliances with local companies before venturing into the Indian market, and even once you are there in India, you can build up further alliances. Seek a consensus, know your friends, innovate. All the time you need to innovate to adapt to the Indian circumstances because the rules change rather frequently. Be cost effective. Despite the sudden Indian economic growth, homeland security in India is still a far cry from the limited budget of Western countries. So cost effectiveness can give you a competitive edge in the Indian market. Everything at the end of the day is judged on how relevant it is to the given budget. So you'll have to tailor some of your stuff to the budget to just enter the market and start. Once you've entered, you'll make your profits in due course of time. And be ready to negotiate. So whatever past price you quote, he'll probably quote half of that. So you'll probably come up halfway after doing lots of rounds of tea and coffee with them and smiling at each other, and you'll probably get the right price. That's all, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you.
Learn something new, but in such an entertaining way. Thank you very much indeed. Extremely revealing. When I talk to Security Watch India, I always find that I think they probably rather overestimate the difficulties or the cultural problems, I suppose, of dealing inside India. And it always makes me think that when I go home to my constituency on a Thursday, you have to face dealing with the National Health Service, or for that matter, the British police. I mean, how can we in this country be frustrated with other systems and other cultures when we have an NHS which seems to be Byzantine in the way that it's organised, and a police organisation that has 43 separate constabularies? So there are parallels. I can understand the frustrations that you point out, but there we are. We have our own in this country, as you well know. You more than well know. Ladies and gentlemen, I want you now, please, to listen to John Gullum, who will be talking to us about the way of business opportunities inside India. John's a defence and security expert who currently works for the United Kingdom Trade and Industry. He's had 25 years experience in this, and has headed sales for NATO for governments in Southeast Asia and inside the United States. He's currently the Security and Defence Advisor to UK Trade and Industry, and he will give a particular perspective, I think, to how you may do business in India in the near future. John, thank you very much indeed.
Thank you, Patrick. Maruf, great presentation as always. I'm going to take this from a rather different perspective, that of business and how UKTI, the government, is going to assist companies in trade, and trade is the operative word. What can we do? How can we get you the right platform, the springboard to get you trading, and how we particularly identify and validate markets overseas where we see opportunity in these areas. What are we using to drive this? Yeah, still? Okay, this is a general overview of the type of work we're doing to identify opportunities and markets for UK companies, and this is just taken a snapshot now of countries that we've identified as offering the largest opportunity for companies with homeland security technology, national security technology. Terminology varies where you go, but what I want to illustrate with that is we have an operation which covers around 96 countries worldwide with our embassies, with our high commissions, experts in those countries whose job it is to identify opportunity for our exports. Right, India. India is right up there with USA as our two key priority markets, the markets where we've identified the most opportunity for our companies, and where we have been, over the last 3 years, very successful running a program of cooperation with Indian partners. I stress you need partners, as Maruf has already said. You need to have reliable people in country, such as SWI, such as our people at the High Commissions over there. As many as you possibly can. Information is all important. This is just some of the top line numbers which show the importance of security in India and the type of money that's being spent over there for that. Maruf touched on these as well. The major threat domains that have been identified by the Ministry of Homeland Affairs. Again, it helps to validate exactly the opportunity that we find. And again, let's stress here that we're looking for technology that is unique, not me too. It's not something that's off the shelf and can be taken into a market, and that's valid for any market. There has to be something unique about your technology, and we have now, for example, the first trial of a scanner which will identify liquids at airports. That's in trial at Tyne-Tees Airport since around 2 weeks now. The company Chromec has been successful in developing this technology, and once the trial's finished, you can expect to see the days of plastic bag with 100ml content disappear, thank goodness, and making all of our lives much, much more simple going through airports. So the technologies, again, this is the policy of the Ministry of Homeland Affairs. We attended a science and technology conference from the MHA a while back, and Secretary Pillai from the MHA was very clear in dictating almost what they want, and it has to be adaptive technology, it has to be Indianized technology, i.e. suitable for the country and for the threat of that country. Now, it's very easy to take a product and say that's take it or leave it, that's all we can do. But the successful companies in India have adapted their technology to the current requirement. They've allowed, Maruf mentioned R&D, get a partner, work with them, identify what the in-country needs are. Every country has a different approach to threat mitigation, and it's important to take that into account whilst you're building your relationships with both the partner and with the government agencies, your eventual customers. And again, India has its own definitive doctrine against terrorism, and that doctrine very much dictates the technology. So always good to keep in mind. Again, overlaps with some of the information that Maruf was giving. These are the key funding programs where we find there have and are definitive requirements for technology. We've had companies being successful in working with the Airports Authority of India with the introduction of the Advanced Passenger Information System. We have a company here who sold £30 million worth of counterinsurgency hovercraft to the Indian Coast Guard recently. Another company selling specialized test equipment to the Indian Air Force. So again, opportunities are there. Getting the partner and validating the particular program that you're going after is all important. And it's bear in mind, capture the customer and beware of all the rabbit holes, and don't dive down all the rabbit holes that you'll find along the way, because most of these are dead ends and will just take up your time, money, and get the right information from day one. SWI are people at the embassy, at the high commissions. They are the people who have the information you need. They are the ones who will lead you to the right partners, qualify the right partners for you. All important. It's not a quick process, it shouldn't be a quick process. Keep your mind on the objective, and all you really want to do is capture the customer. So always good to keep that in mind. A lot of companies get deflated. Their objectives, their strategy suddenly becomes diluted. They lose patience, don't have resources enough, and can't afford maybe to spend the time and effort and energy required to have that in-country presence. And that in-country presence is all important. And that's why, going back again, get yourself the right partner, because they are in-country, they have the knowledge, the culture, traditions, and clearly the relationships. These are some market entry strategies that have been extremely successful. I gave a presentation on defence with India, and a lot of these are from the defence industry, but there is a very much an overlap today between defence and security. A lot of the technology is being adapted and transferred from the defence to the security industry, driven mainly by the horrendous costs that are being implemented now in the defence business. So joint ventures, memorandums of understanding, stepping stone. If you don't want to go the whole way at first, take it step by step. So you find someone, you have an understanding with them to develop a market with them. The next step, once you get to know each other, like a relationship, get engaged and eventually get married. So pick the right way for yourselves. Technology centres, great worldwide entities such as EADS, Lockheed Martin, work in this way, setting up with an Indian partner. Again, Maruf mentioned R&D, important. Make India not just for the home market, but also as a stepping stone for the GCC markets and Africa and other markets in the theatre. Consortium approach, yeah, sometimes attractive for an SME. They don't bear all of the risk completely on their own. They share with others who have the same objectives. And of course the big problem on the horizon for a lot of countries are offset. A lot of small companies just can't handle the offset problem. But again, there are ways around this. Particular technologies such as radar technology and surveillance fall under the offset limit, so that's a pretty safe area to go to, but again, worth finding out exactly where the values and technologies focus here. Again, partnerships, FDI, foreign direct investment, has been made a lot easier now in India.